please find seats and to stop all conversation. No one should be speaking right now. Please make sure that all cell phones are turned off for the remainder of the program. We're going to begin with the reading of names. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise. From the Gross family, Joseph Weiss and Ratza Hendel Gross from Hungary. From the Hartman family, Chaim Hartman, Yenta Hartman, Chanabina Hartman, Yechiel Isaac Hartman, age 7, Shammai Hartman, age 7, all from Hungary. From the Hennick family, Mato Lichtschein, Moshe Lichtschein, Hillel Lichtschein, Herschel Lichtschein from Hungary. From the Hirschan family, Abraham Koltov, Rosa Kahn, Moshe Schwab, Greta Schwab, David Dahas, Gabriel Schwab, Judith Hart, Josef Veldman from Holland. From the Hoffman family, Leon van Straten, Herman van Straten, Max DeLeo, Yaakov Weiss, Shlomo Tzadok Hoffman, Yitzchak Weber, Chaim Yehuda Weiss, Esther Weiss, all from Hungary. From the Horowitz family, Walter Bromberger and family from Germany. From the Jacobowitz family, it's the Perels family, Pinchas Rosenwald, Yechiel Rosenwald, Shevela Rosenwald, Frimer Volman, Herschel Volman, of Aryeh Leib Volman, Friedel Volman, Avram Yitzchak Volman, Pekela Volman, Gittel Yakubovich Lieberman, Tovi Yakubovich Lieberman, age 10, Yisrael Yakubovich Lieberman, age 12, Perelbaum Yakubovich, Yehudis Yakubovich, age 7, Esther Gila Yakubovich, Moshe Mordechai Yakubovich, all from Poland. From the Kahn family, Rudolf Friedman Berkowitz, the Berkowitz family, the Markowitz family, Alice Mayer. From the Kamenetsky family, Chanachaya Bazelig and Gittel Leah Bas Moshe Tzvi Halevi. From the Katz family, Zoltan Adler, Bela Adler, Shamshan Fulap, Hermina Fulap from Hungary. From the Klestik family, Eric Roman from Berlin. From the Kanovich family, Leba Wellingstein Lewin, Rachel Wellingstein Lewin, Israel Lewin, Zalman Wellingstein, Yudel Wellingstein, Yona Wellingstein, Leba Peshka Finkelstein, all from Poland. Yehi Zichram Baruch. You may be seated. A few weeks ago, I received an email from Hillel Schwab, whom many of you know. He is a graduate of SAR High School, sibling here, and now learning in the Gush in Israel. The email said, "Hi, Rabbi Hartstark. I happened upon this in the Lodge Cemetery." He writes in parentheses, "I'm in Poland with Gush right now. I assume this is your namesake. It's quite a beautiful poem. You are a descendant of the Noda Yehuda. Do you know the story of why the Tzion is on the wall and not inside the cemetery?" That was the text of the email. I'm hoping that you can see from where you're sitting that this is a copy of a tombstone which is on the wall of the cemetery of Lodz. The name at the top of the tombstone is Naftali Herzl Hartstark. That's my name. Dayan Umoret Tzedek Bekilatenu. And Hillel Schwab, student of SAR, stumbled on that a couple of weeks ago and sent me that email. Over my years as principal, this has happened a number of times. And it is very powerful for me every time that it happens. If you look, you can see the name and the acrostic spelling out the name in the poem below it. And I wrote back to Hillel, "It always means so much to me when a graduate is in the Lodz Cemetery and sends this picture. Rav Herzl Hartstark was my father's father. He was the official Rav Ha'ir of Lodz, a Sadiger Chassid, a Dayan, a member of the Sem, which was the Polish parliament, and a friend of Rav Meir Shapiro, who established the Daf Yomi. He was the Rav of the Altstadt Shul, which was an enormous shul in Lodz that was destroyed during the war. And I put that slide up for you to take kind of notice of the fence at the bottom and the people standing at the bottom, so you can kind of proportionally look at it and see how enormous that shul was. It had actually My father told me that shul had 150 Sifrei Torah in the shul. I think that my shul has 8, 10, and that's 150 Sifrei Torah. He passed away, my grandfather, in 1934-35. It's still hard for me to believe that my grandfather passed away that many years ago from cancer. He was buried in Lodz. And my father, Zichrono Livracha, did a Pinui Atzamot. He brought his remains to Har HaZeitim in the 1980s. And a copy of the Matzeva was placed on the wall of the cemetery to memorialize his presence in Lodz. For me, on the deepest and most personal level, the idea of a graduate of SAR High School learning in yeshiva in Israel, traveling to Poland to learn about life in Poland before the war and the destruction of Jewish life in the Shoah, and then seeing my grandfather's name, my name, in a cemetery in Lodz is enormously meaningful. On the one hand, it makes me imagine that without the destruction that occurred, how different our lives might have been. I imagine how this could have been a high school in a different part of the world. And it reminds me that before the destruction that we memorialize today, there was a most vibrant and diverse Jewish life in pre-war Poland. It also ignites in me very powerful feelings. It reminds me that there is a Naftali Herzl Hartstark, a very different one, me, who lives as a Jew today in America, not in Poland, in a co-ed school, not in a cheder. It reminds me that through all of that destruction, there is still continuity. The Jewish people are alive, and the Jewish people are thriving. But with that privilege, there comes responsibility. Today, we stop what we're doing and we remember. And we have a lot to remember, more than is humanly possible. 6 million Jews were exterminated. That is too much for me to understand. It is overwhelming. And because of that, sometimes in Yom HaShoah, I find myself trying to focus on just one person. When I focus on one person, I feel that I give dignity to that one distinct life, and then I try to imagine that times 6 million, each one unique in its own right, perished in the Shoah. But also, there were millions more who survived and had their lives forever shaped by that trauma. And I want to share with you one image, an image of a person who survived the war, not one who perished, one who survived, but an image that was seared into my mind when I was a bit younger than you all are now. I was probably 13 or so. And I hope you are allowing me to share a lot of personal family stuff. As you can imagine, as I started to describe, the Shoah was very, very present in my home. My father was a survivor and was in the Lodz ghetto from 1939 to 1944 when it was liquidated, and then was in Auschwitz and Dachau. After the war, Poland became a communist country. And the Polish government did not acknowledge or talk about the Jewish extermination for 20 years, not a word. And in 1976, the Polish government invited about a dozen Jewish rabbis and leaders to come to Poland. It was the first time that there was a trip like that, and my father, Zichrono Livracha, was among that group. After that trip, he went back to Poland 15, 18, 20 times, I'm not sure, between 1976 and 1992. He worked a lot on cemetery preservation. The Warsaw Cemetery is enormous, and as strange as it sounds, and I hope that many of you will have an opportunity to go there, it's an inspiring place to walk around. You see, it's a cemetery, but you see the names of the greatest Rabbanim, Talmidei Chachamim, writers, poets, politicians of the long Jewish history in Poland, a thriving Jewish culture that was destroyed. And today that cemetery has been cleaned up and is very respectable. It is a place of true kavod hamet. When my father went on that first trip in 1976, the cemetery was overgrown with broken tombstones. It was not cared for. And during that first visit, he found the matzevot of the names, I hope, of these two rabbis you will find familiar, Rav Chaim Soloveitchik and the Netziv, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, two of the Rosh Yeshiva of Volozhin. This is how he kind of pieced together the other slide, actually, one after that, I think. Is there another one? Nope. There was another slide where you see the broken pieces of the Netziv's Matzeva and Reb Chaim's Matzeva, and it was like a puzzle to put all of those pieces together. And I share this with you just because, I don't know, it's meaningful to me, and Yom Hashoah is the time where I can just share, a sense of pride in my father's connection and the work that he did. But I want to share a particular story with you from his experiences there. There was a shul that was still functioning in Warsaw then, as it still does now. It's called the Nozik Shul. My father spent Tisha B'Av there one year. When I was a young boy, I remember him coming home with pictures in shul with Eli Wiesel reading Eicha in Warsaw on Tisha B'Av. This is a man on the right is my dad, and the person on the left is a suntanned and much younger-looking Eli Wiesel. They spent Tisha B'Av together there. But the story I want to tell is as follows. Survivors in New York would hear that my father had been back to Poland and would ask him all sorts of questions and listen to his stories. One time my father received a call in his office from a man, a survivor living in Brooklyn. He said that he needed my father's help. The man had received a letter from a relative in South Africa, a cousin, that told him that a cousin, a woman, was still alive in Poland 25 years after the war had ended. He found out around 1980 that he had a cousin still in Poland, and he had a phone number and had spoken to her a couple of times on the phone. But this was there was no way visually to see anybody. Poland was a communist country. There was no way to get in there to visit or be able to meet up. So the man had heard that my father used to go back to Poland, so he asked if my father could contact his cousin. He had a phone number. So my father agreed. He was actually at that right before a trip to Poland. When he arrived in Warsaw, he called the number. And a woman picked up the phone and gave him an address where they could meet. So the next evening, my father went to the address. When he arrived at the location, he thought that there must be some mistake. He was standing in front of a Catholic nunnery. He stood there for a few minutes trying to figure out what to do, and then a woman came to the gate and asked if he's the man scheduled to meet Paula. So my father said yes, and she said, "I am Paula." It's a little difficult to see if you look in this picture. My father's in the middle, and the woman on the right, and you see that's Sister Paula. And my father's in shock. That was the cousin of the frum man in Brooklyn who called him but had never seen this cousin. They sat down in a room in a church, and she explained that when she was 16, the war ended. She was in Auschwitz, and the church took her in. And they proceeded to have a conversation where she pulled up her sleeve and showed the number on her arm from the concentration camp. And if you can imagine, they had this conversation in Yiddish. My father, when he would describe this, it's like I was sitting, he would say, with my kippah, talking to a woman in nun's clothing, both of us survivors, she with a number, talking in Yiddish about what happened. And she had said, I couldn't bring myself to tell my family where my life is right now. And my father would always say there were 6 million Jews who were killed, but there was, even that's not comprehensible, but there was so much more. Here were two survivors, one with a kippah and one in nun's clothing, speaking in Yiddish. And she had asked my father, I need you to tell them where I am. For me, this story has always highlighted that not just those who perished, but also the living, that every story was about a full, entire life totally transformed, that every life is sacred and requires its own telling. And with that, I am privileged to introduce our speaker this morning. Mr. Mark Schoenwetter was a young child in Brzezinsk, Poland, when Germany invaded, and his family was forced out of their home. And after his father was taken by the Gestapo, Mr. Schoenwetter's mother fled with him and his sister to a nearby ghetto. Mr. Schoenwetter has a really important story to tell, and we are grateful to him for joining us this morning and are honored to hear his story. A special thank you to Joanna Aruda at the Museum of Jewish Heritage for connecting us with Mr. Schoenwetter. And at the end of his presentation, there's time for Q&A. You can either come to the front to ask a question directly, or if you have a question, you may email Ms. Klatt, aklatt@SAR High School. Thank you.
Rabbi Hershtak, thank you so much for your introduction. And what makes me feel on top of it so good that you're a landsman of mine. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you my journey to survival during the Holocaust. As you already know, I was born in Poland, in a small little town named Brzostek. My parents were farmers in this town, had quite a bit of land, and of course, being a farmer, you had horses, cows, chickens, whatever comes with a farm. And let me just say in the beginning that my father had some people who worked for him, in particular one Polish family, which he gave them 2 rooms in our house, so it would be convenient for him and them to work at the farm. It's important to remember those people. Well, besides being a farmer, my father was the Rosh Shekuel, the head of the Jewish community in this town. 1939, the Germans invade Poland, took them 3 weeks, and they conquered the whole country. And happens that the German army went through our little town, so we saw the tanks, we saw the trucks, and it's a war. A foreign army takes over, and we did, my parents in particular, and me, or my sister younger from me, didn't realize any consequences of the war, what will happen. It's a war, it's a war. In about few months, I don't remember exactly when it was, the Gestapo came to the town. They went to the police station and they started asking questions about the Jews. Then they came again. So at one of the times when they came, the chief of police tells them, I told you anything you want to ask, you ask me, but if you need more information, some questions you have in reference to the Jewish population in town, why don't you go to Mr. Schoenwetter? He is the head of the Jewish community, and talk with him. Okay, so they came to our house. They talked with my father, whatever there was the conversation, nothing particular. But at one point when they came in, they told them that they have to impose certain sanctions in reference to the Jewish population. And one of the things that affected immediately, all the Jewish people have to wear a band on their arm with the Star of David. Okay? It was done. Didn't take them too long. Again, the Gestapo came in and they say, well, all the Jewish kids going to the public school have to be taken out, and there is no anymore Jewish kids allowed in public schools. Wow. Again, it happened. Then they start asking my father, we be here tomorrow with trucks, and we need Jewish men to do some work, and we're going to take it. So let them get together in your backyard and wait till we come and we take them to work. So this was the first time that I saw when the people were staying in line waiting for the trucks. Then they came. They had with them a lot of policemen, Gestapo, and they were walking around looking on every one of them. And for no reason, in my eyes, as a small little child, see that the guy takes his rifle and hits a Jewish guy staying in line. My God, why is he hitting him? What did he do? But sit quiet or no, the first time I see something like that happen. Well, then they took him, they came back, and this happened a couple times that they were doing that, but they were bringing them back to town. Then the Gestapo came to my father and they told him, effective tomorrow, you're allowed to take only personal belongings. You have to find yourself a room someplace in town because we are taking over your property, your house, and everything. Well, my father went, he found a room in a Polish family, and we moved in there, and we lived there. So from then on, if they needed something, they called him to the police station, and then he used to come back home. One day, they call him, it's late in the evening already, he's not back. Mom didn't know why isn't he back? Then somebody knocks on the door. When she opened the door, she sees the wife of the chief of police, because they were friends, they knew each other, and she says to her, listen, I have to tell you quick something. I overheard my husband speaking with the Gestapo, and they mentioned to him that they will take all the Jewish people and get them out from this town. So I want to make you aware of it, and I would suggest you take the kids and run away. Because you'll probably be one of the first one because your husband, whatever he is. And she left. Mom doesn't know what to do. So she figured, let me go back to the house. And there is this family that lived with us, they work for me. Let me talk and see if they can help me out something. So she came and she talks to the head of the family, which was Mr. Piwat, their name, Piwat family. And she tells him the truth, and he says, well, it's late in the evening, we're not going to do anything at night. Why don't you go and sleep to my cousin? She knew who it is and everything. And he pinpoints at me and him, let them stay and sleep with my kids here. Tomorrow morning, we get together and we figure out something. Mom left, I went to sleep between the kids. Early next morning, the door opens and the Gestapo walks in. They go straight to his bed and they ask him, "Where's the Shonwete family? We were told that they in your house." He says, "No, they're not here. There's no Shonwetes here." So the Gestapo guy looks at him and he says, "Listen, you're not cooperating with me. We know they're here. I have people with me. We're going to search the property. We're going to find them. And because you're not honest with me, we're going to kill them and you. So let's question, where are they?" He says, "Go ahead and look. They're not here." So he tells to his people, "Search the property." They walking on. He is behind them. Then he stops. He turns around and looks at the older kids sleeping on. And then he says, "You," one of the kids, "tell me, how many brothers and sisters do you have?" The kid, without any hesitation, says, "6." He goes, he counts, it's really 6 kids. So he walks out. Well, let me tell you, I was the luckiest kid in the world that this kid was smart enough to include me in the count of the brothers and sisters, because I don't think I would sit here and talk to you today. Anyway, Mr. Piwat comes and tells to the kids, "Get up, get dressed, go outside, do whatever you want, just keep yourself busy." And he tells me, "Quiet, you go with them out, make sure you're all together, but when you be outside, run behind the house, you know the bushes are there, hide in those bushes, don't come back to the house. Wait for me there. I will come and pick you up." And that's what I did. I was waiting. Finally, he came in and he says, "Okay, let's go to your mom." We got together and he says to my mom, "You know, I was thinking about the whole thing. And I think for you would be the best thing, you know, in Dębice, there's another larger town. There is a ghetto there. I heard about it, that they created a ghetto there. I think would be better for you to go there. Nobody from here would think that you're there. They're not going to look for you, and you'll be safe, and you live there." Mom says, "Okay, if you think that's something that I should do, that safe thing, okay." So he says, "Okay, I take you to the town." We walk to the town, so we walked for about 15 miles. It was away from our location. We walked there. When we got to the town, he says, "Okay, here is the ghetto. You see the Germans are standing there by the gate. But if you come in, tell them you want to go in, they will let you in. They wouldn't give you any trouble. Just walk in and you find yourself a place and you live there." So that's what happened. We walked into the ghetto. So Mom said, "Let's go and look around. We have to find a place to live." So we walking and walking and walking. There is no room. Any house she walks in, it's full of people. While we walking, we see people even living on the streets. After walking for quite a bit of time, finally she found a little tiny space on the attic of one of the houses. She grabbed the space and she says, "Okay, we're going to live here. We live here." And we start living in this house. Well, after walking for so many hours, we were hungry. So she turns around and she's asking one of the persons, can you tell me where I can get some food for my kids? They're hungry. When person looks at her and says, there's no food here. You get when they give you food, then you eat. That was it. Okay, so we wait. Finally, they call. We go down. We see a big line. We stay in line, get it to this table that they give away food. Soup. So we got this cup of soup, which actually was warm water with a little color in it and nothing else in it. Then you make another step. They give you a slice of bread. Next. Well, we got this food. We were so hungry, there was nothing much what to eat anyway. We finished. And from then on, we learned that every day, twice a day, we were staying in line, and that was the food that we were getting to eat. Well, you can imagine the amount of food what we get twice a day. We were constantly hungry. There was no stores. We got sick. My mom cut our hair because we got lice. There was no water. You didn't wash yourself. You walk in the same clothes day and night. We got sick. Mom got sick. Other people, of course, were getting sick. But there was no doctors. There was no drugstores to get medicine or anything. Who knew about those things? So if you were lucky, you survived on your own somehow, the sickness, whatever you had, you were alive. But if you didn't, you were dying. And we saw a lot of people die in the houses, on the street. So they had people, of course, Jewish people, they took with a little tiny, call it little wagon, two-wheeler, and they were putting the bodies and taking them somewhere there. It was a horrible time to live. But we were living, somehow we were alive, and we just tried to survive those things, and we cried, we begged for food, but there's nothing you could do. Well, one day, a little boy comes into my mom, and he tells her, listen, there is a man right on the other side of the fence, and he's asking people if anybody knows a Schoenwetter. I heard this, so I know you. Come on, I show you where it is. So he brings my mom, and who is that, Mr. Piwa? And he tells to my mom, listen, I heard that they're going to close this ghetto and take all the people out from here somewhere. I don't know what will happen. So I came to rescue and take you out. Go quick, bring you two little kids, and I show you how to get out. Mom runs, brings me and my sister. He takes a blanket, throws over the barbed wire on top, and he tells my mom, pick up a kid and throw him over. Mom says, I cannot do it. I'm weak. I don't have any strength. I don't think I can pick up a kid and throw. He says, yes, you can. Just try it and you see you will do it. And besides, look at those two little kids. They are skin and bone. There is no weight there. You can do it. Make it fast because we don't have time. So my mom goes and she is doing that. She did pick up me, she picked up my sister, threw us over. Then he tells mom, you climb, try to jump over, and I catch you here. Mom did it. He brought us into a house, was next to it. He says, okay, take your dirty, smelly clothes, change, I brought you some clothes, here's some food, eat, and now I walk out from here. I be going first, now you take your daughter and go with her, and you go behind your mother, not all together, separate. And just look where I go and follow me where I go. Don't talk to people, don't turn your heads, don't look around, just keep going. And that's what we did, and we got out from this town. Then he says, okay, we're going to walk to a village, and I found a place for you there. So we walked again for a while, we got to this village, and we got there. He says, those are the people. So the woman looks at mom and she says, well, I see you have two little kids. I am afraid if they're going to be not behaving, people may hear that you're here. Now you promise me that those two little kids, they won't talk, they won't laugh, they won't cry. They have to be quiet day and night. You think they will behave? Mom says, definitely, they will behave. I make sure they behave, don't worry about it, not a word. So he says, okay, go on the attic, cover yourself with hay, and you're not going out from there. You just sit there day and night. I bring you some food, and that's it. So that's what we did. And on this attic, we survived through the whole winter. Well, spring comes in, and she says to my mom, I'm not going to hold you any longer. The farmers are going to start working in the fields. Somebody may hear or be suspicious of something. I don't know. I don't want it. I'm afraid. You have to leave. Mom says, but I don't know where to go. Well, there's nothing I can do. I'm afraid of myself, my family. No. Can you suggest something? So he says, yeah. You see this forest? It's a very big forest here. Why don't you go into the forest? Summer is coming, it's going to be warm. You can live in it. You'll be safe there. Who is going to think you there? Mom didn't have a choice. It takes two of us and we walk into the forest. We walked around a little bit, didn't go too far deep into the forest. She says, well, it's as good in between those bushes like any other bushes. Let's stay here. Okay, and that's how we started. Then she says to us, okay, we don't have any food. So I know there are many things growing in the forest that we can eat. So I'm going to show you which one of the things that growing in the forest we can eat and which one we cannot eat. So we walked around. We came across, for example, mushrooms. So she looks, she says, okay, those mushrooms are good. We can eat them. Let's pick some and we eat. So we picked the mushrooms and we ate the mushrooms. Then we walked again. We came with some berries. Good. Then we came again across some mushrooms and she says, oh, see, those mushrooms are no good. We cannot eat, those are poison mushrooms. You remember the other ones that we ate? They were good. but those are no good. So you have to remember, you have to learn and distinguish one from the other. And slowly, slowly, she was teaching us, and we kind of developed skills in knowing which one to pick and which one not to pick, and what to eat and what not to eat. And that's how we lived through the whole summer. Yes, there was a couple times during this period that Mr. Piwat came in and he brought us some bread. If he couldn't make it for whatever reason, his son-in-law used to come bring us some bread. But that was all the food that we had. And while we went in the forest one year and then the following year, usually the same way we lived, of course, it's raining, we were wet. So Mom says, don't worry, it's wet, okay. When the rain stops, the sun comes, we take the clothes, we're going to hang it on a tree, they will dry, then we put them back on. You see, they'll be washed, clean clothes now. And we've been wearing those clothes day and night, every day, the whole winter, summer, winter, because we didn't have anything else. And that's how we lived during the summers. Now the winters, during the winters, well, cold. You cannot sit in the forest anymore. So Mom says, okay, we're going to walk to some of the villages, and I will make a decision to what house to walk in and see if they can take us in. So we walked here, there, then all of a sudden I'd go into this house. But you sit here and wait till I come back. Don't move any place, don't go anywhere. So we were waiting, she went, and accordingly, if she made a decision that she trusted what the people said or didn't, and if they offered her to stay, or some said no, some were saying they will, but she was making decision if they say yes to really stay there or not. So if they do, sometimes Mom decided that they were okay, we can stay here, but they said, okay, we're not going to hold you more than a week or two. Then you have to leave and look for another location. Mom said, that's okay, at least a week. So when we stood a week, sometimes we stood 2 weeks, but then we had to leave. So again, walking in the snow, cold, not having good clothes, there was nothing on us almost. And if we didn't find anything during the evening, we had to hide in a location, someplace that people didn't walk. And we were just sitting in the snow and freezing in it. And then in the evening, again, Mom walked around because she wouldn't walk during the day with 2 little kids. They would right away spot us. So just only nighttime. And we could find something, we went to live there. In one of the summers, I have to say that, we came across a group about 20-something Jewish people hiding in the same forest. We came across of them. And they suggested to Mom, you know, you with 2 kids, join us. We are a mixed group here, men, women. The men go, they sometimes get some food, someplace in the villages, they go far away at night, they steal some food, we have something to eat. I don't know how you live without any food and getting. Mom says, well, I eat whatever is growing. Well, we getting some food. Join us, and you'll be fine. Mom said, I won't. That's not for me. A big group of people sitting in a forest, It's very easy for somebody to pass by, walk and see, and then call the police, and what's going to happen? They will come here. I rather stay with the kids. I know how to live. I'm used to it. Thank you. I'm not staying. One day, we hear shots. And then we hear machine gun. Mom says, the Germans are here. We have to escape from this part of the forest. Let's get out from here. And she's going towards the shots. Well, we hear the shots, so we kids, Mom, why are you going here? Then you hear the shots, you're going right towards them. We have to go this way, away from them. And Mom says, no, let me teach you. We have to go where they've been already. The Germans in there, we have to sneak through, go behind them. Because if they're going here, they may come across towards our direction. And if they see a spot that people have been here, they're going to continue going and they will catch us. We have to make sure that we go behind them. So let's go. Just be quiet, no talk, not a word, and let's slowly go and see. So we walking. All of a sudden there's a little passage, it's turning. And we see a German guy standing on it and just turn around, looking around. When he turned with his back towards us, Mom just jumped over this little passage behind them, and we ran in bed. We were sitting in this place for a few hours. Finally, Mom says, oh, it's quiet now, everything, let's go back to our place. So we walking back. Why we walk? We're going through the same area, and what do we see? All the 24 people dead. We saw dead bodies laying in the forest. Thanks to my mom, her smart thinking, we somehow survived this situation. Well, again, me go back to the winter times. One winter, again, we walking around. We came across to a farmer, and he says, well, if I take you, I want to make sure that you are a safe place because it's safe for you and for me. Nobody will suspect that anybody is here. Come tomorrow and I figure out something. So we walked out. We came next day. He says, okay, let me show you. Takes us into a pigsty. And he says, you see, I went and I dig here a hole. But the hole is very shallow. You're not going to be even able to sit in it. If you're comfortable to walk in there, step into this and lay down on your bed or front, whatever, you just have to, this position be all the time, then you can, I take you, you can stay here. Mom said, oh yeah, no big deal. We can do it, we don't have to sit. So he says, okay then, step in. We stepped in. He takes pieces of wood, covers the whole top over. Then we hear him putting hay on top of this thing. And finally we hear he brings in pigs. And we hear those pigs jumping around on top of us. We got scared. What happens if this thing breaks? But it quieted down, and we lived in this hole, laying down for a whole winter. We were lucky that we had a place. We don't have to walk in snow and sleep in snow and freeze. But conditions, let me tell you, you can imagine, they weren't pleasant. Whatever the nature created that we had to do, we had to sneak in, push ourselves to a corner someplace and do it and live with it. And then the pigs didn't help much because they on top of us did their share of it and it was dripping towards us. But again, we had a place and we lived this way a whole winter. When we got up in the spring, finally he came in, he let us out, and we had to leave. He said, that's it for us. We couldn't move. Our body, our legs, it was horrible. But somehow we came back to ourselves and we went into the forest back. We had already experienced living in forest and we lived like that. And this was the last summer that we were in the forest. And in the fall, all of a sudden, we start hearing explosions. Then even we heard like trucks or tanks. Mom says we cannot stay anymore in the forest. The German army is moving here. We have to somehow find a place to live somewhere, to go away from here. So we were walking around away from it in the forest, but finally we got out to a village, not in the forest, on the border. Mom said, but when are we going to go? But what do we see all of a sudden? Groups of farmers, Polish people, just moving in the same direction away from the sound of explosions. So my mom says, you know, well, I think what we're going to do when we see the next group of people, we're just going to follow wherever they go, we go behind them. But remember, we're going to be refugees. We're going to be escaping from the front line. And we are Polish people. And she gave us Polish names. And remember, this is your name now. And when we get to a village and we'll be lucky that somebody is going to take us in, remember, don't talk to people, don't say nothing. Don't mention that we were in the forest or anything, remember that. Excuse me. Just tell them we escaped from the front line, that's all. And then watch the way they eat, the way they do things, if they pray or something, you learn, you watch, and then you copy this and do the same, whatever they do. And that's what we did. We found a group, we went, finally one of the farmers took us, we went to live with them, and we lived with them as refugees, of course, escapees. We didn't talk, we didn't much do anything. And we lived like that till about through the winter. And remember exactly, but it was, I think, in February 45. All of a sudden we heard no more shots, no more explosions, quiet down for a week or two, no sound of anything. Then we see some soldiers walking. When they got to the house, we couldn't recognize who they are, different uniforms, they're not Germans, okay? Who are they? They start talking, we don't understand what they're saying. One of them says, I speak Polish, I speak Polish. And he tells us, we are the Soviet army. We liberated you. The war is over for you. You're free. You can go home. We made sure, again, there is no Germans here. And they left. Well, we couldn't believe. We just couldn't believe that the war is over. We don't have to hide anymore and be in the forest or wherever. We can go home. So we still stood with the family, with these farmers, for a week or so. Then we went back to our little town, went to our house, which happened to be damaged because the front was going through this, our town, little village town. So we lived in a basement for a little while, but we see nobody's coming back. There's nobody coming back. Mom says, you know, it's not a good way to live here. We have to move to a larger town and find ourselves an apartment someplace there and live there. And that's what we did. We went from the village, we moved to a town named Tarnów, and we started a new life there. And that's how we survived, and a new life started for us. So I shared with you the way me, my sister, survived thanks to our mom, which was the bravest woman in the world, I consider her. Because for a woman to go through with two small little kids through all this period of time, coming with ideas, with suggestions, with teaching, there's no words for my wife. My mom was unbelievable. So today we have a day of Yom Hashoah. We should always remember what happened in the past. We cannot, and I am underlining, we cannot allow to forget what happened in this period of time. In particular, the young generation has to be aware, has to know what happened during this period of time. And I am going and I am sharing my survival, but there are many other survivals. Every survival has his own story. None of them, regardless which way we survived this period of time in a concentration camp, in labor camp, hiding, being hidden by some, whatever. We went through hell. And when I am speaking to you, it's not to show just, oh, I went through it, okay? It's a story. No, no, no. It's a remembrance. What happened in that time, and you remember that, and you should do, when you're growing up, everything feasible and possible not to let those things happen again. I want to go in peace and make sure that you being aware of it will not happen to you, you kids, you grandkids, you families. And the only way we can prevent from anything happening like that is to be aware what happened in the past. We will not let this happen in the future. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to share with you.
First of all, Mr. Schoenwetter, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if you could hear the applause in the room, but we are so grateful for your remarks today. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And you spoke about how brave your mom was, and I was thinking the same thing as a mom myself, but you must have been a pretty incredible child to do all of the things that you did during that time. We have a bunch of questions. I know some of you emailed me. If you feel comfortable coming to the front of the room to ask yourself, I know Mr. Schoenwetter would appreciate seeing your faces. You can just line up over here. We have time for 3 or 4. But I will start with the first one. Mr. Schoenwetter, you didn't speak very much about what happened to your father. Do you mind sharing a little bit? Do you know what happened to him?
Yes. I mentioned that occasionally Mr. Piwat or his son-in-law came in to bring us a little food. One time in the beginning when he came in, his son-in-law, my mom noticed a pair of shoes that he's wearing. So she's asking him, "Can you tell me where you got those shoes?" He didn't want to tell her. So they were going back and forth, back and forth. But finally he says, "Okay, you're insisting, I tell you, but just be calm what I tell you." He says, "As soon as you left, they start coming. The Germans came in one time to the town and they requested Polish young people for work. So they loaded us up on a truck, took us to a forest, and they told us to dig this big hole. So we work and we work a day or more, whatever, and they took us back home. Then they came a day later, they came in and they say, "We need you back to work." And when we're going the same direction, and we came to the same forest. And all of a sudden, when we got to the place where we dig this big hole, all of a sudden this big hole is full with dead bodies. They told us to cover the whole thing, make sure that it's nicely covered, there's no signs of anything. After we did all this work, they told us, "You see, on the side here, they all kind of different things, clothings. Because when they brought the people, the Jewish people, men, women, children, there were 250 people. They told them to strip and put in rotation, shirts here, shoes here, pants here, jacket, whatever. So they told us, "Go and pick one item for the work that you did." So I was looking around and all of a sudden I came across shoes and I see the shoes and I recognize that those are the shoes of your husband. So for the memory, I took the shoes. So now you know that he was killed and he's in this mass grave in this forest. So that's how we found out what happened to my dad.
Hello. Thank you for your story. My name is Shai. I was wondering if you knew what happened to the neighbor who helped you so much, and like if you ever went and talked to him afterwards or found out.
Yes, the neighbor that helped us out and everything, Mom was constantly in touch with them, and we as already grown-up kids were in touch with them. And as a matter of fact, what my mom did, of course after the war, she had a house next to our house where we lived, was another house, and she gave them the house because they didn't own anything, and say thank you for all the things that you did for us. And then during the whole period of time, me and my mom were in touch with the family. My mom used to send them letters. occasionally packages. So we always appreciate what they did. Not only them, some couple other families that helped us a lot. We always been in touch, and we never forget this.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You spoke so much about your journey and going into the forest and then going into homes. Were there any points during your journey where you sort of felt like giving up? And how did you, I guess, confront that and persevere throughout your challenges?
Well, as a small child, me or my sister, we never thought about giving up. Never came across our mind to give up on this but what it was coming up across our mind, number one, the hunger, constantly being hungry, not being able to change your clothes, not being able to do anything. But we got used to it. And again, our mom, she always looked positive on everything. As I mentioned, if it was raining, if we were wet and we cried, oh, it's cold, it's rainy, it's wet. She says, don't worry, we'll be fine. The sun will be coming and we're going to dry our clothes. We were hungry, we wanted food. Yes, don't worry, we're going to go in a minute. We look around, we're going to find berries or mushrooms we eat, and you'll be fine. Don't be afraid, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. She was always positive, never, oh yeah, I know it's bad, it's this, I don't know what to do. No, she always knew what to say. And thanks to her, we grew up with this idea, growing up and living like that, and always looking positive on everything. That's what I can say.
There are so many more questions than we have time to ask right now, so I'm going to try to reach out to Mr. Schoenwetter later in the day and get the answers to all of your questions. One final very short question, Mr. Schoenwetter. How old were you when you started going into hiding?
Well, I was at that time about 6, 7, 8 and a half. War started, I was 5 and a half. So another year, 6 and a half, 7. That was the age going on.
Thank you again so much for your moving words this morning. We really, really appreciate your sharing your story with us. We know it cannot be easy. You are, of course, welcome to stay and listen to our choir, which is about to come up to the stage and perform. After the choir performance, we will be lighting some candles, reciting some names, the Kalmali Rachamim, and the siren.
by a humble man, a real God-fearing Jew, who did his work with honesty, feeling and with pride. He was known in Kiev as Yankele the scribe. With loving care, his hands so sure and still, he formed me with some parchment, ink, and quill. Each day he'd slowly add to me just a few more words to last until the end of time. And on the day that I was finally complete, the whole town came and filled the narrow street. And they sang and danced and held me high and carried me away to the little wooden shul where I would stay. And as the rabbi held me close against his chest, he spoke out loud and clear to all the rest. He said, no matter if you're very young or even if you're old, live by the words you'll find inside this scroll. 3 days a week they read from me out loud. It filled my soul with joy, it made me proud. They followed each and every verse with fire in their eyes, the words that told them how to live their lives. I watched the generations come and go. I saw the old men die, the children grow. But never in a century did I miss my ones, for the fathers they had left me with their sons. But the hatred from the west came to Kiev, and they rounded up the Jews who had not fled. But Moshe led the Shamis, he was brave and he was bold, and he hid me in a cellar, dark and cold. And for years and years I waited all alone for the people of my town to take me home. And they'd sing and dance and hold me high when they carried me away to the little wooden shul where I would stay. But it was someone else who found my hiding place, and to America they shipped me in a crate. And the man who took me off the boat said I was a prize, but they were Jews I did not recognize.
So if you hear my voice, why don't you come along and take me to the place where I belong, and maybe even sing and dance with me when you carry me away to a little wooden shul where I could stay.
The rabbi held me close against his chest, and spoke out loud and clear to all the rest.
הרחמים, הוא ירחם בממוסים, ויזכור ברית את העניים. הרחמים, הוא ירחם בממוסים, ויזכור ברית את העניים.
ויציל את נפשותינו מן השער הרע, ויציל את נפשותינו מן השער הרע, ויציל את נפשותינו מן השער הרע, ויציל את נפשותינו מן השער הרע.
יגאל ביצר הרע מן הפצועים, ויכון אותנו לפתעת עולמים, ויכון אותנו לפתעת עולמים, וימלא משאלותינו במידתו וישוע ברחמים, ויציל נפשותינו מן השער הרע, ויציל נפשותינו מן השער הרע, ויציל נפשותינו מן השער הרע,
ויציל את נפשותינו.
Every year, we ask students, fellows, and faculty members to light a candle in memory of a family member or family members who perished in the Shoah. We'll be lighting from a candelabra that was made and donated to SAR High School by Milton O-Ring, a Holocaust survivor whose granddaughter is an SAR High School graduate. O-Ring described the meaning behind his candelabra as follows. It is made of stainless steel, and the candle cups are brass. The candelabra has a Jewish star at its base and the design of the armbands that residents of the Warsaw Ghetto had to wear. There are 6 vertical posts. One is a model of the typical concrete post that surrounded Auschwitz. Electrified wires were attached to these posts to prevent escape. One, a crematorium furnace with 2 doors. One, a post on which hangings were performed. One features a cross which has a dual symbolism. It reflects both the times in Jewish history when the Jews were persecuted in the name of the symbol, but it also reflects that there were many, many righteous Gentiles who saved Jews during the Shoah. One, half of the lightning bolt symbol that the Nazi SS members wore, and one, an arm raised in defiance. Except for the last digit, the number engraved on the arm was Elie Wiesel's. Wiesel was alive at the time that the piece was created. I will now call upon representatives from each grade and from our fellows and faculty to light the candles. For the first candle, Bennett Brigida.
I am lighting this candle in memory of my great-grandfather, Jacob Brigida, who lived in Romania and perished in the Shoah.
From the 11th grade, Ella Weiss.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of my great-grandparents, Natan Weiss, Miriam Wettenstein, and Yoel Barta, and my great-aunts and uncles who perished in Hungary during the Shoah.
From the 12th grade, Reina Perales.
I am lighting this candle in memory of my maternal great-grandparents, Avram and Rachel Leah Jakobowitz, who survived the Shoah, and in memory of their many family members who were murdered by the Nazis, Perel Baum Jakobowitz, Yehudi Jakobowitz, Esther Gila Jakobowitz.
From the 10th grade, Jason Qualwasser.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of 5 of my great-great-grandparents who were murdered. Shalom Klipstein and Frieda Klipstein, Shmuel Zev Kolodner Halevi, and Ferdinand Fritz and Josephine Paula Scheiber, among their many siblings, nieces, nephews, and other family members.
Representing the fellows, Hodi Nimes.
I am lighting this candle in memory of my grandfather's little siblings, Jenny Nimes and Aaron Nimes, who perished in Auschwitz during the Shoah.
And representing the faculty, Ms. Edelman.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of my great aunt and namesake, Adol Bas Yaakov, Adol Pluskin-Chomsky, who perished in Slonim, Belarus during the Shoah.
Please rise for the recitation of names, followed by the Kel Mole. From the Kornfeld family, Simon Kornfeld, Shoshana Kornfeld, Matilda Kornfeld, Yosef Kornfeld, Alexander Kornfeld, Renata Kornfeld, Rudolf and Elsa Rubin, Franz Rubin, all from Slovakia and the Czech Republic. From the Krasnodębski family, Menachem Nachum Krasnyansky and Mordechai Tzvi Charitonov. From the Ukraine. From the Krasner family, all from Germany, Adolf Aaron, Bruno Aaron, Gunther Aaron, Lisa Aaron, Isaac Aaron, Lucia Aaron, Norbert Aaron, Ulrich Aaron. From the Qualwasser family, Josephine, Paula Schreiber, Ferdinand Schreiber, Shmuel Zev, Kolodner Halevi, Guta Kolodner, Shalom Klipstein, Frieda Klipstein, Ruth Klipstein, Leo Blach, Friedel and Asher Goldberg and their 5 children, Miriam Ettel and Avram Sapir and their child, Dvasha and Shalom Rosenstein and their daughter Sarah, Tabel Kolodner, Dina Kolodner, Getzel Kolodner Levi, and Lotta Grunfeld. From the Leibowitz family, Yoshua Horowitz, Chana Mulstein Horowitz, Sander Zilberman, Sarah Schneiderman, Shmuel Schneiderman, Simcha Yosef Shidlover, Sima Golda Shidlover, Hunda Shidlover, all from Poland. From the Luria family, Merkava Luria, Jaya Luria, Esther Luria, Isidore Luria, Rebecca Luria, parents and 3 children, all from France. From the Lerman family, Chaim Schulzinger, Asher Schulzinger, Eliyahu Schulzinger, Yaakov Goldfarb, Ita Goldfarb, Nechama Goldfarb, Rivka Goldfarb, Avram Lerman, Razel Weingarten, Chaim Weingarten, Beirish Weingarten, Yisrael Shevach Weingarten, Miriam Esther Weingarten, Liba Weingarten, Leah Weingarten, Bela Schulzinger, Chana Lerman, Tzipora Lerman, Tzvi Hirsch. Please remain standing for the Kel Male, followed by the siren. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamiromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'malos Kedoshim Uteorim Kizorar Harakia Mirim Umasirim Linishmos Shisha Milyonei Achenu V'nei Yisrael Anoshim Nashim Yiladim V'Yilados Shenehergu Shenishchatu Shenisrafu Shenechneku Shenitbeu V'Shenekberu Chayim Bidei Hanatzim Yozrehem Yimach Shemam Umasru es nafsham al kedushas Hashem. Bavur she'anu mispalalim li'ilui nishmoseyem. Lachein ba'al harachamim yastirem b'seiser knafav li'olamim. Vitzror achayim es nishmoseyem. Began Eden tehei menuchasam. Adonai hu nachalasam. V'yanuchu v'shalom al mishkavam. V'nomar amen. Please remain standing. As you exit the room, please do so quietly and with proper respect. You are dismissed to your class or to lunch.
Sure.